February 19th, 1945. Morning. Black volcanic sand of Iwo Jima. Thomas Begay was 18 years old when he stepped from the landing craft into hell. Waves crashed against his legs. The air smelled of gunpowder and metal. Overhead, bullets crossed like angry bees. Around him, Marines fell before they could even touch the ground. Begay carried a radio, 50 pounds of metal and wire on his back. But what made him different wasn't his equipment. What made him different was his tongue. In the hours ahead, Thomas Begay and his 5 fellow code talkers would transmit over 800 messages on Iwo Jima. Artillery coordinates, enemy positions, orders for life or death, all in a language the American government once banned. All perfect, not a single error. But to understand how we got to that beach, to the moment when a language nearly destroyed saved thousands of lives, we must go back further, to a different place, to a classroom, in the 1920s. Chester Nez was 8 years old when the government took him from his family. His original name in Navajo was lost to the records. All that remained was the English name given to him, Chester. At Rehoboth Mission School, New Mexico, the rules were simple. Don't speak Navajo, don't remember who you are, don't be Indian. When Chester was caught speaking his mother tongue, they scrubbed his teeth with bitter brown soap. It tasted like poison in his mouth, but worse than the taste was the message behind it. Your language is something dirty. Your identity is something to be erased. This wasn't random punishment. This was policy. Beginning in the late 19th century, the goal? Elimination. Kill the Indian, save the man. Their hair was cut, their traditional clothing taken. Peter MacDonald remembered boarding school as a prison. But there was something they couldn't take. May 1942, Camp Pendleton, California. 29 young Navajo men arrived for basic training. They would be known as the First 29. Chester Nez was among them. So was Peter MacDonald. Most were still teenagers. Many were still in high school when they enlisted. And now, the military was asking them to create a code based on the language they were once punished for. Chester Nez said, "I thought about how my people were mistreated, but this was my chance to do something for my country." Their mission? Create a code that couldn't be broken. Use Navajo language, but make it unbreakable. Philip Johnston led the way, and they did it. Philip Johnston demonstrated the concept to military officers. 4 Navajo encoded, sent, and decoded a message in 20 seconds. Machines took 30 minutes to do the same job. Major General Vogel was astonished. He approved the Code Talker program. The Navajo Code was a masterpiece in cryptographic design, 2 layers of defense. Type 1. Every letter of the English alphabet was assigned 1 to 3 Navajo words. Navy, a code talker could say, Tsa, Wallachi, Aketiglini, Tsa Adzo. Even if the enemy intercepted the transmission, what they heard was a random list. No meaning. But that was just the beginning. Type 2 contained 211 terms, later expanded to 411. No word for tank. Use turtle. No word for submarine. Use iron fish. Bomber. Use buzzard. Every code talker had to memorize over 400 terms. No notes. No written code books in the field. Everything in their heads. Even if someone was fluent in Navajo, they still couldn't understand the code. Even a fluent Navajo speaker would hear a list of unrelated words, but a code talker would hear a clear message. Guadalcanal, August 1942. The first code talkers were deployed to the Pacific. No one knew if the system would work under real fire. 2 code talkers were assigned to each unit. One operated the portable radio. The other received and sent messages, translating from English to Navajo and back again. The first message was transmitted. The Japanese heard it and understood nothing. From Guadalcanal, code talkers would participate in every major Marine Corps operation in the Pacific, but their role came at a terrible price. Code talkers had to keep moving as they transmitted. Stay low, stay fast. Because when they spoke, they became targets. Some were killed in action. 13 Navajo Code Talkers never came home. But those who survived kept speaking, kept sending, kept saving lives. And then came to Iwo Jima. At dawn, the Code Talkers landed on Iwo Jima, the black sands waiting like the edge of another world. Bullets tore through the surf. The beach was pure fire. Amid the chaos, the first Navajo transmission crackled across the air. Messages that no enemy could break moved faster than bullets. Within seconds, the message was received, translated, and acted upon. The coded words turned chaos into coordination. The beach was hell. Black sand, smoke, fire, and the smell of metal. They sent messages under fire, never missing a single word. Amid chaos, entire units were lost. The Code Talkers reconnected them, word by word. Every position updated in seconds, every strike coordinated perfectly. Their voices, calm, precise, unbreakable, guided the fight. Bullets hit the sand inches away. Still, they kept sending. The Japanese tried to intercept the messages, and failed again. Even a fluent Navajo speaker couldn't understand it. Without the code, their words guided the victory. Their code was never broken, their courage never forgotten. September 1945. Japan surrenders. The war is over. Marines come home with parades and medals. They are welcomed as heroes. Code Talkers come home on buses. No parades, no medals. No one even knows what they did. Because the military gave them one final order. Don't talk. Even though their contribution was heroic, American Indian Code Talkers were told they must keep their work secret. They couldn't even tell their family members about their communications work. Why? Because the codes they developed remained unbroken. The US military wanted to keep the program classified in case Code Talkers were needed again in future wars, so they came home in silence. Chester Nez returned to New Mexico. He used the GI Bill to go to the University of Kansas, studied fine arts, got married, started a family, and never told them what he had done. Peter MacDonald became a community leader, eventually became chairman of the Navajo Nation, and could never speak about the code. Thomas Begay struggled with what we now call PTSD, nightmares about the Black Beach, screams that never stopped. A traditional Navajo Enemy Way ceremony, a ritual for returning veterans, helped him find balance. And life on the reservation wasn't easy. Navajo people were denied the right to vote in Arizona until 1948, in New Mexico until 1953, and in Utah until 1957. Heroes who saved thousands of American lives couldn't vote in American elections, couldn't sleep in American hotels, couldn't eat in American restaurants. A bitter irony. Decades pass, the Code Talkers grow old in silence. But whispers start to spread. Historians begin to ask questions. In 1968, the mission is declassified. The world can finally know. Surviving Code Talkers are interviewed. Their voices shake, but their pride shines. And their grandchildren finally hear what was hidden. Their tribes honor them first, with songs, dances, and tears. Then, America begins to remember. In 2001, they finally received the highest honor, the Congressional Gold Medal. The medals shine, but their silence was the truest act of courage. The radio that once carried secret words now carries their story. Schools, statues, and memorials rise in their honor. Their language, once banned, now taught with pride. From silence to song, their voices finally rise, because even in silence, their courage spoke louder than words. So, what do we learn from this story? What endures after the smoke of battle clears and the medals are given? This is a story about the power of language, not just as a tool for communication, but as identity, as resilience, as a weapon that cannot be taken or destroyed. The government tried to destroy it, and then it saved them. This is a story about irony and justice, about how one nation could be so wrong, so cruel in its policies toward its own people, yet then be forced to rely on what they tried to erase. Chester Nez said it better than anyone. For years, telling you not to speak Navajo, and then turn around and ask us for help with that same language. He didn't say this with bitterness, though he had every right to. He said it with quiet awareness that he chose to serve, despite the injustice, that he chose to be greater than the policies that tried to make him small. And this is a story about moments when history pivots on the smallest details. One code, 6 men on a beach, 800 messages without error. How many Marines lived because of precise artillery coordinates? How many attacks succeeded because of secure communication? How many lives, American, Japanese, civilian, were touched by 6 men speaking a language that was nearly destroyed? Today, the Navajo language is in danger again, not from government policy or boarding schools, but from time, from modernity, from a softer, more insidious assimilation. In 2014, fewer than 170,000 people spoke Navajo, down from 180,000 in 1980. Most speakers are elderly. Younger generations exposed to English through school and media are losing their ancestral language at an alarming rate. But there is a movement to save it. Immersion schools on the Navajo Nation teach children in Navajo from kindergarten through 8th grade. Apps and digital platforms teach the language to new generations. And the Code Talker story, the story of how this language once saved a nation, inspires these efforts. Peter MacDonald, now 97, still speaks about the importance of keeping the language alive. When young Navajo people learn about the Code Talkers, they feel pride. They want to learn the language. They want to connect with their heritage. And that is a heritage that saved the world. Among the 4 sacred mountains, on the land that has sustained the Navajo for thousands of years, the language still speaks. Fewer now than before, quieter than it should be, but still there, still alive in the words of children learning from their grandparents, still alive in ceremonies and songs, still alive in the memory of 2 old men who once stood on a black beach and spoke in a language that could not be broken. February 19th, 1945. Morning. Thomas Begay was 18 years old when he stepped onto the black beach of Iwo Jima. He carried a radio on his back. But what made him different, what made him essential, wasn't the equipment. It was his tongue. The language that was once washed from his mouth with soap. The language he was told was dirty, primitive, worthless. The language that saved thousands of lives. The language that was never broken.